everybody. My name is Nancy Cooper, and I'm one of the First Nation consultants at the Ontario Library Service. One of the amazing things that I get to do is work with the First Nation Communities Read Book Award. This year, we're working with over 88 nominated titles in the children's and young adult category. So I want to start off with speaking with Peggy, author of The Secret Pocket. Peggy is an award-winning author from the Whut'en First Nation. She is the 2024 Indigenous Voices Award winner, as well as being a 2024 winner of the Forest of Reading Silver Birch Award, which is a huge deal. It's like a big, huge rock concert for kids and books. It's amazing. So congratulations. And your book, The Secret Pocket, is based on your mother's story of residential school, and it made me cry, but also made me just so proud of who you are and the people that you come from. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Sure, absolutely. So, Yelf Wolf Kwasai, thank you for having me, and thank you to the other guests. I'd like to thank all of the folks behind the scenes too. I know I just get to magically have the Zoom button to push. So I just want to thank all the workers making this space great for us. And a special shout out, to the Owl and the Cat Independent Bookstore here in Chilliwack for sharing their time, letting me zoom in from their store. So a little bit about my book. As you mentioned, it's about my mother's story, attending Indian residential school at Blue Jack, BC. So it's my first book. It's my first book. I need to say that. It's my first book, and I'm just going to share my favorite pages. My favorite page is the very beginning where my mom and her grandma are cuddling in the smokehouse, where they're just kind of sitting. They're tending the fire, we call it, and that page was really important for me because I needed to make sure that I have a book that's strength-based, right? Because I always feel like as a teacher, so I'm a BC teacher as well. So I always feel like when we share these stories, it's important to set the stage to show how much strength and beauty our families have before all of this awfulness. Yeah. I think I'll leave it there just in case I don't want to take too much time.
Oh, no, that was a wonderful introduction to the book. I think one of the most amazing things about your book is the fact that you talk about how the girls sewed pockets into their skirts so they could help feed the kids who were starving. And it was an incredible act of resistance and resilience at the same time. But what got me very emotional was the fact that you continue to do this with your graduates in their, oh dear, in their graduating robes.
Yes.
There's a pocket sewn in those robes for them to always remember who they are and where they come from. And that was just so moving to me.
It was. I was crying quite heavily because I attended the UFB Indigenous grad ceremony with my son. He's my youngest. He graduated doing the welding course. And so
congratulations.
to come full circle and to be on the receiving end as the proud mom of getting one of those graduate stoles, I think you and I would be the two family members sitting in the audience crying.
That's wonderful.
I couldn't believe it. It was very meaningful.
Wow. So do you teach your book in class?
Yes. So I've been teaching about residential school in BC classrooms for over 20 years now, since 2002. And it was before the BC curriculum made it so that included teaching about residential school and BC classrooms. And so I've been teaching this for a very long time. So along the way, just learning how to make sure, we have permission to share these stories in the classrooms. And so I kind of have my own personal kind of set of stories that I share in the classroom. And this was one of them, just taking care to get the permissions.
Oh, that's wonderful. What's next for you? And then we'll let you go.
What's next? I'm going to be at this bookstore. I'm going to be hopefully thinking about my next book. I'm really happy to share that I think it's May 5th. My book is being published in French. So yeah, so there's going to be a French version coming out. And then I was just able to secure hopefully somebody who can translate the book into our dialect, the Whut'en, the Dakelf language. As many know, the BC languages, First Nations languages, are endangered. And our language is in that category. So I was really happy. Hopefully there will be one version in our Nak-Asli dialect.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And French too. So great. I've been hearing a lot about a lot of requests for French,
Yes.
for books being translated into French. So that's wonderful to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to have you talk and run, but I know you're in the middle of another event. So thank you so much to the bookstore, and thank you so much for joining us, and happy First Nation Public Library Week.
Yes. Happy First Nations Public Library Week. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, take care.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Willie.
Hello, so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So your book, Minnow, the girl who became part fish or was part fish?
Ooh, became part fish.
I thought that's what it was. Became part fish is one of the nominated titles for First Nation Communities Read. And we're so happy to have you here to talk about the book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book for those who are watching who might not have read it already?
Yeah, of course. So Minnow is the main character, and she's a young Indigenous girl who's always been drawn to the sea. And she is out collecting garbage one day when she transforms into part fish. So kind of like a mermaid creature. And she goes on this underwater journey, and the story is told in like a rhyming prose. And so she goes on this underwater journey and kind of discovers some of the things that are happening with some of our fish relations and whale relations. So she sees like an oil spill and some like netting that a whale had got caught up in. And she comes back like to her people and transforms human again and tells them of all of these things. And then they kind of come together, as many of our land and water protectors do, to fight back against some of these things. And so it's really grounded in the land back movement. I think that was kind of a huge inspiration for it, was watching some of the land and water protectors in my life and seeing so many Indigenous people at the forefront, risking their safety for so many of these important issues. And so that's really at the core of it for me. And so I'm not going to say it's not radical, but I would say it's quite powerful for me anyways. And I think it's one of my more sort of raw action-based books.
Well, that's exciting. Did you also illustrate the book?
Oh my goodness, no. I wish I was that talented. So Bailey illustrated the book, and they're a Cree author who lives in Nanaimo.
It is quite beautiful. I know that the concept of, like just climate awareness and water protector, land protector is very, very I don't want to say popular, but like it's really in the collective consciousness, especially amongst younger people right now. And I've heard the concept of climate anxiety really affecting our young people. So what I love about the book is that you provide hope and you provide tools for the people who are going to be reading the book. Was that part of the reason why you wrote it?
Yeah, so I was teaching at the time, and I was teaching in a community in Lil'wat First Nation, which is kind of outside Pemberton. And they're a community that relies on the salmon. And I had lived previously in Honeyguatine First Nation and also up in the Yukon, in Trondequichin First Nation, all of which are salmon nations, and all of which have closed salmon fishing to their own people at some point during the time that I had lived there, to help try and restore those numbers. And so all of those communities, even though they're very different and on different, even different salmon, like different salmon runs and different salmon species, but all of them had such a huge decline in salmon. And I can remember one student telling me like, oh, I wish you would have came like a few years ago, like you would have got to taste like good salmon, like this salmon that we eat now, like it's not really the salmon we normally would have. And I was like, oh, okay, like why? And they were like, the salmon used to be so abundant. And I remember them saying that you used to be able to smell when the salmon would run through their community, that it had a really, really strong smell. And that's how they know that there's no salmon now, because they can never smell it. And this is like a young, 13-year-old telling me this. And I just don't think they understood the traditional ecological knowledge that they even held at that point. That was like mind blowing to me. And so there were so many moments, I think, that led to the creation of Minnow. And it was like just a build up of watching my students go through climate anxiety, and feel this sense of hopelessness, like, they'll never be able to eat what their ancestors have eaten for thousands of years again. Like that feeling was very real and really scary. And for me, really impactful in that it made me incredibly devastated for them. And I wanted to create something that brought hope, but also helped other people see that this is a really real issue, and we have to do something about it. So yeah, I think there was like a lot of different moments that impacted the sort of creative process of Minnow, as there are with most of my book. Um, yeah, and Minnow was the final result.
Wow, wow, that's very very sad to hear. Your story of that young person. But I really, really love the fact that you were able to help maybe make them see the ancestral knowledge that they did carry with them, through writing this book. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Métis from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I grew up there, lived there my whole life, until I was maybe 19. And a lot of my childhood, I was very consumed by stories. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and my grandpa, who would tell me stories of like our family's trap line and running sled dogs. And I was like consumed with sled dogs. I thought it was my calling. I thought it was like what I was meant to do. Since I was really young, I had this vision of like living off the land, with a team of dogs.
So we're celebrating First Nations Public Library Week. Here in Ontario, we have 37 First Nation public libraries, and the men and women who run them are heroes in my book. They're often the community hub, the place where people gather, and also a really great place to find books. Has the library played a part in your life?
Yeah, I, as a kid, spent a lot of time at the library. I'm always admire their patience. I was always the kid who brought books back far later than I should have. I'm still the person who brings books back later than I should have. But I spent a lot of time in the library. When I was a little kid, I always said I was going to be a writer. And then I kind of gave up on that dream in high school. A lot of people say, like, you know, you're not going to make a career of writing, or it's not really worth it. You have to pick something more real or tangible. But, you know, all my school projects when I was a little kid say that I was going to be a writer. And I can remember getting my first library card. I was just in Halifax and they were on strike at the library. And I was at Staples printing something, and a lady came in and she had to print, it was a lot of things. And it was so expensive at Staples. And I just remember her like looking and being like, oh, like I didn't even realize how important the library was. And it is so important. Like I think it impacts so many people, and books are so expensive. Even my little collection of books at my house, like, you know, it was so expensive. And so, yeah, I think it's just incredibly important.
One of the really great things about First Nation communities read is that each First Nation public library gets a library set of 5 each of the selected titles and 1 copy each of all of the shortlisted titles. So we make sure that the books get into community exactly for the reasons that you just talked about. You know, people go through books like really quickly, and it's hard to get new books, especially, you know, like in more remote communities. So, you know, the library plays such an important role. So we're joined by Janicki Dupuis, who is Anishinaabe from the Nipissing First Nation in northern-ish Ontario. She is an author, artist, and educator. And her first book, I Am Not a Number, was a recipient of numerous awards and accolades, including getting on the illustrious list of selections by Dr. Debbie Reese and her blog, American Indians in Children's Literature, which her best books of the year list, which for those of you who know Debbie, that's kind of like the Indigenous Author Academy Awards, if you get on that list. It's pretty amazing. So Jenny is based here in Toronto, and her latest book, Heartberry Bling, tells the story of a granny and her granddaughter, about beating, and also about an important part of our history where Indigenous women lost their status as Indians under the Indian Act. And it wasn't until 1985 that they were able to receive their status back. So it's that historical story that is told. So welcome, Jenny. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on these days?
Yeah, certainly. So Heartberry Bling was one of my latest books that came out, and for me, it was something that I wrote during when we were all under lockdown. So it gave me a really great opportunity to sort of explore some various important topics that were very, very important to me. I hadn't really talked about or explored much when it came to the gender discrimination that existed in the Indian Act and still impacts our communities and today, the First Nations women and children. So I thought that would be a really important conversation to get started. It's one of the first children's books to reference it in Canada. And I'm an educator as well. So I thought this would be a great introduction using a picture book to have this conversation. But I also started thinking about some really other important topics that I felt too that I'd like to explore with young people. That whole concept too of perseverance. So the book talks about this young girl who goes to visit her granny. Then together they explore some old photographs, and then she discovers her granny's history. But together she finds out that her granny, healed or used beating as part of her healing. And together they make these beautiful heartberry earrings. They learned about the heartberry, so the strawberry teachings. and together they learn about the importance of caring for self and others. So I take that into my daily life, and I really wanted to share that with people. So to talk about perseverance, and then also to think about how proud this little girl was when she completed the Hardberry earrings, when she looked in the mirror and had her dad standing next to her and her grandmother, and she just beamed. And when you think of that whole concept of Indigenous joy and what that means, and we need to talk more and more about that, the idea of that cultural preservation, but through that we can find Indigenous joy. So it was, I really tried to weave together various topics. I think it's fantastic because you're asking what I'm doing today is I'm watching some public libraries and some various other libraries that are doing something. They're doing story walks with the book right now, and I saw that pop up on social media, and just the different activities that educators and libraries are using with the book. It's really, really fantastic to see. On a personal level, I'm also involved as an artist, and I find a lot of joy doing sort of pop art through various Indigenous themes, through and telling stories, not only through written word and children's books, but also doing artwork as well too.
So you're kind of busy these days. We've also seen your beautiful shirts at Winners and Marshalls that that were designed and are being sold in support of National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, Orange Shirt Day. Can you tell us a little bit about that collaboration?
So I started working with TJX Canada, and it was through them identifying some of my artwork, and we created some collaborated to create some lunch kits and hydration bottles. And from there, I got to know them quite well, and we decided to collaborate, or they asked me to collaborate with them. I was selected to do their orange shirts. So I started thinking through a design, and I wanted sort of some messaging as well. So it was thinking of that whole concept of threads of unity. And through that, I incorporated some symbolism as well, thinking about the sweetgrass braids, thinking about the baskets or the nests, and the symbolism around that, and also various birds and such that have various meanings as well, the hummingbird and such. So I crafted sort of a very short little story around that that's available. When people walk into the stores, they're able to see that, and to support Orange Shirt Day, and also where the money is donated to as well too.
So great. And did you mention if it's all across Canada?
It's in all stores, Winners
Okay.
and Marshalls. So I'm been very fortunate to have that collaboration with them as well, with the various products, and really learn about the way that they design the marketing around it, the way they created the tags so that they can share the information, not just the image of the shirt, but also provide a description and those things as well. It is very thoughtfully done, and I've been very appreciative to have the various collaborations that I do with various corporations, not just with Winners and Marshalls, but be able to share my artwork at that level too.
The jury for First Nation Communities Read is made up of First Nation librarians in Ontario. So I think it's the only award where Indigenous librarians make up the jury. I could be wrong, but the things that they look for are very specific. They're looking for intergenerational knowledge transfer. They're looking for how can this be programmed in our library? They're looking for truth telling. They're looking for resilience, hope, and love. And they knocked it out of the park again this year with the choice of their shortlist and selected titles. How important are libraries to you?
For me, they've been important since I was a little kid. That was the place that I go and spend a lot of time to get sort of education in every different area. I used to walk out with a big stack of books on everything from recipes that I wanted to make with my family to things I wanted to, like places I wanted to go around the world and, see all the pictures of it first, and then reading stories, make believe and real stories as well too. So for me, they really enrich my life. And for now, as an educator, I think I really draw on them, and their expertise to help to educate others, to bring sort of a world to young people. And it's just a fantastic experience to be able to walk into a library and, choose whatever that world might look like, how you want to educate somebody and share and help answer big questions that they may have as well in their own lives when you think of children that have questions.
Definitely. It's a great honor for me to be able to work with all 37 First Nation public librarians throughout the province, including Randy from your community, who is an amazing storyteller. I'm gonna introduce Richard now, and we can keep the conversation going. Richard Van Camp is Dogrib from the Dene Nation. He's a member of the Order of the Northwest Territories, so that's pretty fancy. He's also the recipient of numerous awards for his books, some of which include Little You, Moccasin Square Gardens, and Godless but Loyal to Heaven. He's a very, very prolific artist. What's going on these days for you, other than the skunk?
Well, Nancy, Masi Cho, Sagya Masi, thank you so much for having me. Chimigwich, it's a real pleasure to be here. It's a joy to see you. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Treaty 6 territory, and I just want to say hello to everybody. Si hobatsa gotso ete hani ho Edmonton de Sagya Masi, Sagya. My friends, thank you so much for having me. My name is Richard Van Camp. I was born and raised in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, Treaty 8 country, and I live in Edmonton, Alberta with my family. And yes, we have a skunk who lives under our deck, and Skunky sprayed this morning about 4:50 a.m. So it was a wonderful awakening. Skunk spray is really good medicine for the lungs. So I feel like we got the smudge we needed, eh? And I'm really grateful. So what's cooking? I got some good news. Nancy, are you ready?
Yes.
I just received my 2 new books in the mail. This is Beast, and it is by Douglas and McIntyre. It's a young adult thriller. It's about 3 teenagers. One is Clecho, one is Métis and psychic, and the other is Cree, who's a grass dancer, and they have to stop an ancient being who's been called into our world from the small town bully in Fort Simmer, Northwest Territories. And it's beautiful. I've been putting probably 7 years of my life. I've never done so much research in anything. And I'm really grateful to Douglas and McIntyre for publishing. It's YA grade 8s and up. So that's huge. It just arrived, like literally just arrived. It's not in stores yet. And this is my new graphic novel with master artist Christopher Shy. It's called We To Go War Wroth, and it's 1 of 3. So we're working on book 2 and 3 right now. I'll give you a sneak peek. I'm not supposed to, but what the heck? Hey, you guys don't slash my tires, okay? Don't slash my tires. So I'm sorry about the glare, but it gives you an example of Christopher Shy's artwork, and it's about a father who was bit by a Whut'en, but he's holding one of our most powerful medicines. This is rat root. The Lakota, they have different names for this. They call this bear root, but in Dene and Clecho Dene, we say rat root. So because he's holding this medicine when he's bit, he doesn't turn full Whut'en, and he's got to save his family. So he's half Whut'en, all dad. This is about parenthood. And I wanted to work with Christopher Shy for 15 years. And why this is so important is we're actually using real models from our community. So this is this is David Burke. He was in The Revenant. And this is Henry Beaver, our former chief of the Salt River First Nation. There's Joel Evans, who acted as Larry Soul in The Lesser Blessed, and this is Dwight Moses. So we've got real Northerners, beautiful Dene faces as our models and actors. And I'm really, really proud of it. So this is, it's a spiritual thriller. I would say it's for grades 8 and up as well. We're calling it The Indigenous Walking Dead. We're really proud of it. It's really beautiful. And I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead. I read The Walking Dead for 10 years. So these just arrived in the mail. And I just want to thank you for the honor of having this series entered into the conversation for the awards. I wrote a little series called The Spirit of Denende, and book 1 is A Blanket of Butterflies, and it takes place in my community, Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, where I was born and raised. And I got to work with Scott Henderson, and I got to work with colorist Donovan Yachuk. And we're really proud of it. It's based on a true story. We have a suit of samurai armor in our community, and it arrived by accident. There's three stories. The first is that it's kind of the boring, which is probably the truth, is that there was a great guy and he bid on all these samurai suits of armor and he won them and he was a wonderful human being. But after he passed, his family wanted a place that was really knew what to do with these beautiful artifacts. And so I've always wondered, how did a real suit of samurai armor end up in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories? And so they said that, oh, it was donated. But here's my theory. Okay, hear me out. This is the way I think. So there's a real war memorial museum in Fort Smith, Arkansas, United States. And when you do the research, there's a whole wing devoted to samurai armor. And so I thought, well, maybe there was a clerical error. There was a summer student. They were just partied right out. And it was a Monday morning. And they saw these 6 boxes in Ottawa. And they were just like, maybe what? Fort Smith? I think that's NT for Northwest Territories. Yeah, send them up north. That's how they ended up there, right? It was human error. But anyways, so this is about a man from Japan who comes to get this, repatriate this suit of samurai armor. And there's a young Tlicho Dene boy named Sonny who goes every day to the museum to look at the suit of samurai armor because he's scared of it. There's a latent power to it. And he overhears that the man from Japan has all the papers. He's going to escort his ancestors' suit of samurai armor back to Japan to bring honor back to his family. And he learns that the last museum director had a bit of a gambling problem. So the katana that accompanied Shinobu's family's samurai armor was lost in a card game in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. So this is our real water tower. These are the trees. Scott Henderson really knocked it out of the park. And so Sonny says, I can help you get that sword. The man who won it in that poker game is Benny the Bank. He's really dangerous and his boys are even worse. And they already know you're coming. This museum director you spoke to already called Benny the Bank. Benny runs this town. I'll tell you and I'll teach you how to get your armor back. And so Sonny goes with Shinobu and look what happens. Arrows from the trees, ninjas. This is everything you and I are about. Hey, 84, 86 was all about the ninja. Everybody wanted to be Sho Kazugi. Hey, I was just working out my gaunch with hockey stick nunchucks. Hey, in front of my full-length mirror with my rat tail and my mullet, my pinch hickeys. I thought I was good, I tell you. Anyways, I peaked in about 86, eh? Let's be honest. Anyways,
Well, everybody
so
was kung fu fighting.
everybody was. So this is about dignity and repatriation and honor, and we're really proud of it. And this is book 2 in the series. It's called As I Enfold You in Petals. And it's about a young man named Curtis who's just come out of treatment. And he was firefighting when he got out because there was a fire really close to our community. And while he was there, he discovered an old watch. And he was shown where this old watch was in the forest where they were fighting this fire. And he'd always heard that Benny the Bank, just the worst of the worst in the community, the munyao who comes up and starts running the town, you know, dirty deeds done dirt cheap, you know what I mean? He always heard that Benny the Bank would pay top dollar to anyone who could ever return his watch because Benny lost it one day when he was showing off moose hunting. Anyways, how this story opens is it's Benny the Bank's birthday in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, and half the town is there because on Benny's birthday, if you can amaze Benny, you get $20,000 cash. And Curtis shows up with that watch. And so you get to see, he goes into the house, there's 20 grand on the table, cash on the dash, cash makes no enemies. Hey, it takes finance to romance. Anyways, Curtis is there and everyone is you know, wanting to be entertained. And true to his word, Curtis gives Benny his old watch back. And Benny can't believe it. So he offers Curtis the $20,000 and Curtis says, I don't want your money. I want my grandfather's cabin back that you won in that card game. And Benny tells him, you should take the cash because I know why you want your grandfather's cabin. And Curtis's grandfather was a medicine man and could cure cancer, could cure leukemia, performed many miracles in his life. And the reason Curtis's grandpa could do that was because Curtis's grandpa had made a deal with the little people. The little people pass their medicine on to Curtis's grandpa. And Benny says, they're gone, Curtis. When my granddaughter was dying of cancer, I begged on my knees outside that little teepee that's still in your grandpa's house. They're gone. The old ways are over. The old magic is gone. You should take the cash. And Curtis says, no, I don't believe you. I'm going to call them back. I'm going to call the little people back because there's so much cancer in the north. We need them back. We need them more than ever. And I know my grandpa's song. And so this is a story about dignity and reclaiming and believing in yourself. And again, I think Highwater Press, my publisher, really knocked it out of the park with Donovan Yachuk's colors. We're really proud of it. It's a tearjerker. So there's Curtis singing. And then I'll see, give you a little sneak peek here. Oh, and there's Crow, Benny's beautiful girlfriend, Nichimus in Cree. And she's Inuit. And we got Hovak Johnson's permission to use her facial tattoos. And she is a shaman. And she's helping Benny find his way again. It's really beautiful. And again, I'll just give you a little sneak peek. And that's Torchy and Sven and Flinch. A lot of the people I write about in my short stories, they're in comic book form. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm really grateful to be included in this highly esteemed list. And I agree. Dr. Debbie Reese is the Oprah of Native American Indigenous literature. If you get the goods from her, if you get the thumb up, your way is paved in gold. I tell you, she's the auntie to us all.
Oh, she's so lovely. We should just do like a whole night of celebrating her because she's
Top way,
just
top way.
she's so brilliant.
She is.
Richard, I know we talked earlier or yesterday on the phone and you told me about libraries. Can you tell me a little bit more?
I think libraries are cathedrals of inspiration. I think it's been said, it's certainly not my line, but it's the only place in the world you can go and there's no pressure to spend any money at all. I think I just did a little tweet the other day. I said, Edmonton Public Library and all libraries are family to everyone. And libraries, and especially Edmonton Public Library here in Alberta, is family for everyone. And certainly as parents, it's helped raise us as a family. And I crave libraries. Like my favorite in Edmonton is the White Mud branch. They've got a children's librarian. You never know what you're going to discover. I can spend an hour there easily just browsing. I love the staff picks. So, I think they're a national treasure. I think they should be protected. I think that they should be receiving more funding. The EPL here, we've got maker spaces, 3D printers, sound studios. You can go in there and burn your own music. I love that they give out DVD players. I love that they give out, whatever basically you need, whatever you're looking for, they'll meet you halfway and they'll meet you more than halfway. So Masi Cho to all librarians, we're grateful. It's a safe space for everybody and we need those now more than ever, don't we?